We are creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective. Moments in time captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
Having people that believe in you is like the most important thing, you know? If you have just a few people that believe in you, you can go very far with what you're doing.
Today on the Working Artist Project, I have the one and only Kristina Koller. Kristina's a singer, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and all-around amazing human being. You just heard Kristina talk about people that believe in you and a support system and how that empowers you to accomplish your goals. Sit back, relax, and take a listen.
May hold. Life is too short. Don't let the world ruin your heart.
But we're mainly here today because you have your first CD coming out. And what's the name of it?
Perception.
Oh, shucks. Perception. That's kind of serious. What does that mean? How did you come about with that title?
Well, there's two reasons why I decided on that title. One is because I want people to figure out the style of music that I play. I don't want to be labeled as just a jazz singer. You know, I want people to hear different elements. And the second thing is, you know, the whole album is about relationships, friendships, and the idea of me being in New York for the past 3.5 years and not sure if it's my home, you know. So it's been hard for me to keep friendships and relationships being in New York. I don't know. I'm the type of person that likes to have only a little bit of friends, 3 friends, and call them my closest friends. People act a certain way in New York sometimes, and it's hard for me to get used to that type of vibe, I guess. So, yeah, that's what Perception's about. Okay,
so I mean, I guess that's interesting. It's you know, you're perceiving your environment, so to speak, and you're in a situation where maybe you're not as comfortable as you were back home with the people you grew up with, your closest friends there, and you're having to adapt and change yourself.
Yeah,
you know, and also just deal with the everyday stress of being in New York, which can be daunting.
Yeah,
you know. And, you know, it's interesting because when you make your first CD, for people who don't know, you don't know you don't know anything. So you're going into this process that you know zero about, right? Mm-hmm. And you feel sensitive about it. I'm just saying, this is how I felt, and I'm assuming you felt the same way. You can elaborate on it later, yeah. But because you've never done it, you're putting your music out there. It's like a very personal thing. You're opening up yourself for judgment. To the world, yeah. From critics, and more importantly your peers, you know, and you start to compare yourself to other people. But I think the secret is to dig deep within yourself and know that this is only the first one, so you can't truly judge anything. You don't have anything to judge it against. It's just this is where I am right now. It's like a snapshot.
Well, for me, I've gotten to the point where I try not to compare myself to others because everybody's on their own path, you know, and I know it's hard to sometimes I do get annoyed about certain things, but people will be playing different clubs that you won't be able to be playing, and vice versa, you know, that type of thing. And I don't know, it seems like jazz is so diverse in itself, so you can do what you want with the music, and people may love it, people may hate it. It is what it is, and you just got to accept it for what it is, you know.
Okay. Now I'm curious, why call your music jazz? We know jazz is diverse, but it seems to me sometimes people just limit themselves to this name, you know, just because they went to school for jazz, or because sometimes they like to play jazz. But why is your music jazz?
Well, it has a lot of jazz elements in it, most for the album, a lot of it's standards, but I did my twist to it, and I use a lot, jazz harmony. I mean, I don't, when I perform, a lot of times clubs don't want, my progressive jazz, I guess. So I end up like putting in some straight ahead stuff, you know. It's just this, I guess it's better to have a broader way of describing the music sometimes, especially if you're like trying to book gigs and stuff like that, you know. I guess that's why I call it jazz.
Okay, so you just said something interesting. Club owners don't necessarily want you to play your quote-unquote progressive music.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. So what do you do in those situations where you're booking gigs and then they're like, oh, well, can you leave, you know, these songs out, this and that?
Well, I just do it, you know, because I could do, I mean, it stinks that you can't do your full thing. But, you know, I do end up like putting in like 1 or 2 arrangements just so people can get a taste of what I do. And in the end, like nobody hates on it usually. So, or at least I don't think so.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm just I asked that because I'm curious to know like at what point are you like, you don't sacrifice your sound for someone else's preferences? You know what I mean? It's just like maybe this place isn't the place for you. I don't know.
That's the thing. I've been reaching out to other venues too, aside from jazz clubs, to see where else I could get into. You know, like the City Winery in Boston, Groove in New York, you know, and also the clubs that are more crossover jazz, like New Blue. It's hard to, it takes time to, like, I feel like it takes time to figure out which clubs are the best and which ones are going to do the best for you, you know.
I want, before we, you know, at some point, we're going to play some more of your music, but I do want my audience to have like a general sense of what your music sounds like. And it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's traditional jazz. How would you describe the sound of your music?
I guess, the short version, jazz infused with R&B and rock and funk elements to it. You know, I'm influenced, like I said, I'm influenced a lot, from Motown and classic rock, and I also, you know, I loved punk rock when I was in high school, and like acoustic music. You know, I've always listened to all styles of music. It's just, yeah. So that I'm trying to put that into my music as well.
Now, which artists from those genres, like if you could name one artist from each of those genres, which ones would they be that influenced you the most?
Okay. Well, I would say Stevie Wonder.
Okay. I was gonna sing, but I ain't want to just bust it out like that.
Stevie, probably Bon Iver for like I guess the acoustic-y vibe, punk rock, Blink-182, and then I guess for now, like it's hard because you get like I could go because there's so many jazz artists that I love and like I'm influenced by, but I would say like. Gretchen Parlato is probably like one of the top, and Jose James, those two, for that style, for sure. Okay.
I think, you know, this would be a good place for me to play some of your music, but I personally want to hear, since you letting everybody else choose, I'm going to choose.
Okay.
I want to hear one of your tunes that you would consider progressive or outside or a little bit on the edge of the jazz realm. Which one do you think we should play?
I Miss You by Blink-182.
Hello there, the angel from my nightmare, the shadow in the background of the morgue.
Oh shit, you play, okay, so you covered that?
Yeah.
Why'd you choose to cover that?
You know, I had a phase where I went back to all the stuff that I listened to when I was younger, and I was like, wow, these lyrics are deep, you know. You know, you don't hear that when you're younger. When you go through stuff, you hear things differently, I think. And I don't know, it touched me because I was going through something at that time, and it really grasped onto me, and I just took it and arranged it, and that's how it happened, you know.
So which lyric was it that grabbed your attention?
Don't waste your time on me, you're already a voice inside my head.
And you can always find me. We'll have Halloween on Christmas, and in the night we'll wish this never wish this never ends.
So who's this angel in your nightmare? I mean, you know, you don't have to name names, but damn. So what happened? How did we get to this song? You know, what happened in your life?
I don't know. You know, there's like always, you know, the one that got away. You know, like, and you just think about how things could have been different if things had worked out. You know, and it's just been like a very hard thing to do in New York for me, is dating. And I think it's probably not even just in New York, it's probably around the world, just because of how people perceive dating nowadays. Like with all these dating apps and stuff, you know, it's just
Listen, so this is interesting because Kristina, you're how old are you?
23.
Okay, she's 23. So I don't even know is that millennial or what? You know,
I don't know. I don't consider myself like that because I'm an old soul. So
yeah. So you know, she's talking about these dating apps like she's 38 or 40. You know.
Yeah, but like I wish people could communicate with one another nowadays. You know, it's just it sucks that you have to. It seems like you have to be on these apps to meet someone, and it stinks because nobody knows how to communicate anymore. They get offended by everything you say. Like one little thing you might joke around about, and then they're like, oh, you know. Right.
Okay. So, look, everybody's sensitive. Look, y'all hear this? Y'all sensitive. She's tired of it. So that's interesting. I wonder if that aesthetic translates to the music, you know, for your generation, and for younger generations, and maybe for the generation before you, you know, like my generation. I wonder if we are overly sensitive and we aren't actually listening to one another in the music and outside of the music.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I haven't thought of it that way. I definitely think that, you know, it's hard to find those people that will be like that. Like for instance, being in a band, you know, you should have people that you connect with on a social level, and not just on a musical level. Because what bothers me more than anything, I know somebody's gonna get offended by this, so I'm sorry in advance. is like people playing with someone because they have a name, and that's the only reason why, just so they have that. I mean, it's like good to do that, but it's like, what about the music? You know, the music's not gonna. I mean, it'll sound good, but it won't sound as good as being with people that you connect with on an emotional level. You know, I feel like it goes hand in hand that way. I mean, like, especially playing with you guys, you know, it's like we always have such a good time, even though, you know, like for instance, when we were in Georgia, you know, it was such a good time, and when we didn't have our performance, we were hanging and, you know, spending time with each other and chatting about things. And a lot of the times people go on tour with people that they, you know, don't communicate with and don't have a good time with. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem like the right way of doing things.
Okay, I can see that point of view, you know, but sometimes you got to pay bills, you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Maybe you don't have a connection, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is there's levels to that.
Yeah.
And generally, I see what you're saying. Like, yes, like you do want to play music or create art with people that you connect with personally, so that the art can be full of love and adventure versus just like, oh, why the fuck am I out here? Like, I don't like this motherfucker, or whatever the case may be. But also maybe that energy is useful in creation too. So you know, it's two sides to every coin.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, I think it's different. Like, being a sideman, you can play with whoever you want to play with, but being a singer, it's harder because you gotta find your band basically, and that's, I don't know. For me, I want to find people that I can spend years playing music with them and creating something, you know, instead of jumping around all the time. Like, yeah, I would like to like have separate projects, but you know, every project has to have something.
Right. You're monogamous. I get it. No. That, for all jokes aside, that makes sense. You know, you do want to have a nucleus, you know, so you can vibe off people and have a consistent sound within your band. And like, if you're a young musician out there, this is valuable information. And you also said something that people may not realize is, if you are a vocalist, you do have to create your own band, and you also have to create your own musical opportunities.
Yeah.
Unlike someone like me, who's a sideman, I play with like 20 different artists. You know what I mean? And that's how I make my living, by diversifying my portfolio, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you should think about if you're out there and you want to be a singer, or you want to be even a saxophone player, some kind of a lead. Yeah, if you want to be a band leader, then you need to be prepared to make it all happen. And being 23, fresh out of college, you're doing it, right?
I mean, I'm trying to do it, you know?
You're doing it. So, like, I just want to kind of get into that process, and like, how did you jumpstart that for yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was in college, I was just like, you know, I can't wait to get out so I can just record my first album and get things moving. You know, I always set goals for myself every year, and I did that. Like, right when I got out of college, I went into the studio and I recorded my album, because it seems like it's very important to have a product, because if you don't have something to show, then it's hard for people to book you and want to have your music. And it you know, it's just interesting because you just never know what's going to happen. Like the Velvet Note performing there, like, you know, taking a chance on Christmas weekend when it was snowing, you know, and they took a chance on me too, you know, and having people that believe in you is like the most important thing, you know. If you have just a few people that believe in you, you can go very far with what you're doing. Yeah.
You said something like, you said you have to have a product. And I think sometimes like that type of language is lost on the artist. You know, like, we get so wrapped up in the process of improving our ability to create art. And then when you get wrapped up in the process of creating it, that you forget that I need to produce something that is consumable. And the more people that can consume this product, the better I am off financially. You know what I mean? Like, I could be Coca-Cola, or I could be the guy who makes soda out of his bathtub. Like, you know, and then there's everything in between. So when did that come? When did you realize, like, yo, okay, I need to make this product, and like having some sort of business IQ is important? And like, who did you learn that from?
I don't know if I learned it from anyone. I think I just like observed what was going on and how people are doing things. Like, I look on people's websites and see what they're up to. I mean, I think I had that realization when I was in college, because I was like, oh, God, I want to like make a difference in this world, and I want people to hear my music and what I can do, you know. And I think having an album is the best way to do it, you know. And that way you can also take these albums to your gigs and sell them and make profit that way as well. Because it's hard. A lot of these gigs don't want to pay, so you got to pay out of your pocket all the time.
I want to talk about like growth, you know, and like what does that word growth mean to you?
Every year, something great happens in my career, and that's how I see it as a growth. You know, it may be like the slightest thing, you know, I mean, like, for instance, this past year, playing my first my jazz festival, and playing 3 sold out shows at a jazz club in a different state, and also playing at Smalls, because I've always wanted to play at Smalls. And then now this year coming up is my album, you know, like every year I feel like that's growth, you know, if one step at a time, but if you make goals for yourself, and you stick to those goals and focused on those goals, then they'll come through, and you'll feel a bit more accomplished with what you're doing. I mean, obviously everything's not sunshine and rainbows, but it takes a lot of time to get things moving. And I just feel like if there's like a little bit of progress, it's something, you know.
Right. I like to talk to my guests about like, obstacles and things in life that they've conquered. I know you're an old soul, so you've conquered quite a bit. I am sure of it. What are those things you've conquered, and what lessons have you learned from them?
Well, like for one thing, don't compare yourself to others. I don't know. When I first moved to New York, I was like, oh, I'm like terrible. Nobody likes me, and like all these people are getting all these gigs, and I'm not. Nah, nah. But having that mindset is just like such a negative way of thinking. You just got to think of your path and what you want for yourself. And that's probably like one of the reasons why I don't hang out as much too, is because I've been so focused on trying to get my music to where I want it to be. Also, don't depend on others, because it's terrible to say that, but you got to do your thing, and sometimes you have to be selfish and just focus on yourself and your happiness. You can't let someone string you along for a long amount of time, and they're gonna, especially someone that's gonna bring you negative energy into your life.
I'm just gonna interject on that one. I mean, don't depend on others is kind of like, for me, like, I respect that that's what you believe, but I think that depending on the right people is important.
Yeah.
So I would say, don't depend on the wrong people.
Exactly.
And if you feel like those people are not contributing to your vibe, so to speak, then cut them loose.
Exactly.
Fuck them. Fuck them. Just
no, I should have probably said it that way too. Like, so now I sound like a you know what?
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, man, you okay, so yeah, just the whole idea of growth, I think is important, because especially when you're young, you have to give yourself space to grow, and you have to give the people around you space to grow, because maybe this person is a jerk to you, but they're just 22, so they don't really even know, and like in 5 years they'd probably be awesome. You know what I mean? And that's hard to do, and it's really hard to give yourself space to grow, because like, especially when you're making art, like art gets better over time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, maybe you see a kid who can't really play this year, but he's really working hard. And so you give him some time and some space, and then that kid is really good the following year, the next couple of years. So I think that it's really important for us to remember that in the music community, and just in the community as a whole, like, give people an opportunity to grow. Now, if they don't grow, fuck them. But, that's my word today, y'all. Fuck them, so. And so that's where I'm at with that. I like to play this game, and I call it the word game. And so this is how it works. I say words, you tell me the first story that comes to your mind after you hear that word. All right, no filters.
Oh, jeez.
This is more of a phrase.
Okay.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
I agree with that in some aspects. I think it's kind of hard. I don't know if it might be more beneficial in a way to be a certain age, in terms of, your career, and like for me, like I did APAP this weekend, and I think I was probably the youngest person in the showcase, and my parents were there, and they're like, "Oh, it stands out that you're very young." I'm like, "Oh God, that's not good." And they're like, "No, it is a good thing, because people, you can say that you know what you're doing at a young age, And then when it comes to relationships, I don't know about that, because people older, like I've dated people older than me, way older than me, and like 10 years. And their mentality of their lifestyle is totally different than my mentality, because I haven't gone through a lot of things yet. They've gone through 10 years of more than me, So I think it does get into the way sometimes, in a relationship, a romantic relationship. But I mean, I'm friends with, most of my friends are older than me, so I think I relate to older people.
Band leader.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard thing to do, to be a band leader, especially since you have to pay for. It seems like you have to pay for everything. You have to be an entrepreneur, especially like paying musicians to fly out with you and to pay for hotels and all that fun stuff. But also, it's in the end, it's worth it to me to be up on stage with the people that I want to be up on the stage with, and get this energy from people in the audience that makes you realize that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Perfection.
Well, we all think that things should be perfect sometimes, but you know, for me, when I think of perfection, and I think of a different type of lifestyle where everything's not a struggle all the time and you can live comfortably, because you know, I do love being a musician, but it's very frustrating that you can't have steady income and you can't, and you have to live in a small apartment where, you know, people are fighting outside the door or something, you know. I don't know, it's just, there's like an ideal world in my brain of being in a home and having a backyard with a dog, you know, just feeling comfortable, and that would be like the perfect situation for me. That's how I see perfection. It's just being comfortable with your living circumstances.
It can happen. Listen, y'all. She makes being a musician sound terrible, man. Look, it's not that bad. Look, this shit look, man, it's cool. Like, you just got to keep doing it. Things are going to work out. And I think that you will, like, when you have a clear vision for your life. And I believe that those things will come to fruition 100%.
Yeah. It's
the people who don't have a clear vision who stay in those small apartments with the people fighting outside.
Yeah.
But, the people fighting outside, that's a vibe. You got to write a song about that. Now I want to switch gears, because yesterday we were talking and you mentioned something that I just was quite frankly shocked to hear. And it was, you were talking about discrimination. Mm-hmm. And you can explain the context of that discrimination to my audience, and they'll decide if they agree with you or not.
Okay. Well, one thing, being a woman in jazz is very annoying. I don't know. It seems like a lot of the times we're looked down on and aren't respected as much. And then that goes hand in hand with being a singer, a female singer. People have this idea that a singer can only sing. They can't do anything else but sing. And that's not true, because there are a lot of singers who are also musicians. But also, I don't know, it's terrible to me to think that people don't see singers as a good thing, because they're the ones that connect most with an audience, because they sing a lyric. And maybe it's just a jealousy thing or something. I don't know. It's just, it's very frustrating, because, you know, I want to work with multiple musicians. I want to collaborate with people, but I feel like a lot of the times they just don't want to, because of me being a singer and a female. So,
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, listen, there are people who do this thing, and I think it's insane, you know, because singers are musicians also. And I like to use the word vocalist, you know, because singer sounds like you don't know shit about music. Like, you just like,
I don't know why people like to label that too, though. Like, a singer and a vocalist are the same thing to me. When I first got here, I was like, oh, I'm a vocalist, because everybody was doing it. So I copied everybody else. Mm-hmm. But it's just, no, you know, vocalists and singers are both the same exact thing. If you look it up online, look up the definition for a singer or a vocalist, it's probably the same damn thing.
Yeah, for sure. Y'all done got this girl mad. Now she said a curse word all day. Now she's the same damn thing. Hair flying all kinds of ways. I wish I was recording this, man. She almost walked out of here. Yeah, I mean, listen, yes, I think you're right. But for whatever reason, there is more respect associated with the word vocalist, and that's all I'm saying.
No, I know.
And yeah, people shouldn't discriminate against singers or judge them differently because they sing and don't play a saxophone. That doesn't mean you don't know as much, quote unquote, about music. Mm-hmm. And also, even if you don't know as much about music, does that make you less of a musician? Like,
exactly. If you can sing your ass off, then why does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's true. It doesn't. So, it's one of those things. I don't have the answer.
I don't either. It's just a thing that's there.
It's a thing that's there, and it's annoying. Yeah, it's something I don't have to deal with. I play drums,
Yeah.
So, but we get discrimination too with drums.
I bet people are probably like, "Oh, they don't write music, right?"
Yeah, right. They don't. Yeah, man. All these motherfuckers. Yeah. So I'm with you. I can feel your pain. I can empathize with that for sure.
Well, I would like to talk about jazz music in general.
Okay.
And like how I think people need to be more open-minded about jazz and how to label it, because a lot of people are in this mindset that they have to only play straight ahead jazz, and that's like the only thing that's accepted in the world. But it's not true. If you want to reach a broader audience, I think having all these different styles and influences into your music is more it's a bit of a more of a connection to people, especially for me. Like I want young people in the audience, aside from like the older generation. I want to connect to young people that are my age, and most of the time you don't see young people in the audience when you're at a jazz show, or if they are young people, it's musicians. And I don't know. It's just it's interesting that people are kind of set in their ways and aren't open to that, because I feel like a lot of times when you do something different, people like back away and don't want to have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm. This is an issue that I can see both sides from. Because I think sometimes people do get into a vibe of like preserving, so to speak, the sound of jazz, which is from 1960s and before. And when you start to infuse other musics, it becomes sometimes bastardized or watered down. And so you have to kind of be careful about that, and so yes, but I'm also all for, hey man, like let's look forward and push the music forward and not limit ourselves, especially in our generation, because we didn't come up listening to jazz. Like jazz came way later. Like, for me, dude, I'm listening to Tupac and Biggie, and then all of a sudden somebody played me some Miles Davis and I'm like, oh, that's cool too. So there's no way for me to play music without Tupac and Biggie, because I heard that first. And so if you're thinking about it like that, then I'm all with that, because we do need to bring forth all of our musical influences.
Yeah, of course.
Like Jay Dilla has a place in jazz, the same way that John Coltrane does, in my opinion. If you do it in a way that references your knowledge of the complete musical history on both ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, okay. For sure.
All right, so that's it, man. This is the end. I always ask everybody that comes on the podcast this question, and the question is, what are the 3 things you're most thankful for?
My family, music, I guess, just life in general.
Y'all heard it here first. Thanks again, Kristina, for coming on the Working Artist Project.
Thanks for having me, Darian.
I can't thank you guys enough for listening to this podcast and going on this journey with me week after week. But before you go, I would like to ask you to do a few more things. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. The Working Artist Project is brought to you by Second Line Arts Collective. Find out more at secondlinearts.org.
You're the man I have been waiting for. Ooh. that still remains. I can feel the blood rushing through